my hero. She's aging like fine wine. Doreen raised her children, three children? Three children on the back of a seine boat in Prince William Sound in the 1950s. Yeah, when I was still growing up. One of her children is here tonight, and he's as old as me. Anyway, she's written some Alaska adventure books for children and some historical articles, and she's going to do a few things for us tonight.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Hi, I have two little points to make. A quick two, I think. We are relics from the past, and we're disappearing fast. And I just want to thank the poets that come out here and tell a little bit of the history of Alaska and fishermen and times that will never come again. I really appreciate it. I think they should all have a great hand. I'm going to start off with a little poem, and if I start to wiggle, it's because I got a new knee put in, and it's not quite right. This is called Spring. I live in Oregon now. Spring comes gently. Baby lambs, smell of fresh green grass, gentle rain on my skin. Primroses appear, red, yellow, purple, and wild rhododendrons everywhere as the earth comes quietly alive. I'm not talking about Astoria, of course. But once I lived in Alaska, in a fishing town. Spring is different there. The smells, the colors, no green grass, only gravel everywhere. First come the icy winds, then the rains whipping down the glaciers through town. Get out the full dress rain gear, it's going to be a wet one today. Then the snow begins to melt with an energy you can feel. The sounds of sandhill cranes and geese flying north, outboards in the harbor, the smell of engines, gasoline, oil fumes, and men on the docks heaving their nets onto their boats. The surest sign of spring is a coffee shop crowded with fishermen. Rumors flying concerning the weather, the season, the price of fish, the town coming alive. I miss it. No bright primroses, only gray pussy willows. No gentle rains, only howling gales. No baby lambs, only fish spawning in the bay. Cordova in the springtime. I miss it. I was just going to get these poems out of the way because you got to have a poem because you're a poet. I'm not really a poet. This one is called A Fisherwoman's Memoir. When I was 14, my dad stowed us away on a fish tender from Seattle, bound for Alaska. 3 sisters with no say. That summer, they called us the Floating Cannery Girls. We learned to slime a fish, clean a clam, cook trout over an open fire on the beach with the cannery boys. I didn't mind. A new world. The old one left behind. We landed in Cordova and I married a fisherman. All summer the men fished and the women worked in the canneries. Not me. I'm going fishing too. I'll be a part of the crew. No women on the boat back then. Bad luck, they mumbled. You'll only get a quarter share. But they took me in a pinch to cook, count fish, run a winch. No, they didn't like a woman on the boat, but weekends we counted a dozen boats tied up alongside ours. Stories over coffee and my lemon pie. Eventually I was accepted. I was the captain's wife. And so it continued for me, a fisherwoman's life. But then came a surprise. One summer I brought aboard 2 little fishers. That's right, the kids. Danny, he worked the back deck. He piled high the nets. Donnie, she pushed the corks away whenever we made sets. Most of them jumped in the fish hole and pitched their share of fish, and we used to tease them, what more could one wish? We were a fishing family. That's how they were raised and how it was to be. Even now they fish. They love Alaska, their boats, and most of all, the sea. Wait a minute now, we're not gonna do that one yet. Okay, we'll do the knife then. This one is called To the Knife. How many fishermen in here? Okay, few. So you know what I'm talking about. There's an old knife and sheath. It's about 70 years old and it's in the drawer of Danny's old gill netter. It belonged to his dad in the 1950s when things were handmade. A big chunk of leather with some copper rivets in it, burnished green with salt water and thyme. It didn't matter what kind of knife you had, a Slimer's knife, whatever, just so that it was sharp and you had a good sheath to protect it in yourself. When his dad died, Dan and his sister and a boatload of the family took his ashes out, spread them off an island where he used to deer hunt. But before we left, they each strapped on their knife and sheath that their dad had made for them. It only seemed right. Now I need a drink of water, okay? Pain pills make your mouth dry. Sorry. This is Dan Bilderback's log. He's my son, Gil Eder. Alaska, 1970. 17 years old, May. Fishing the Copper River Flats. Went on a date one night and left my knife home. Left the next morning and forgot it. Southeast storm down by Egg Island Light and a large minus ebb and no one around. Net out, kicker won't start, and 300 feet from shore in the whirlpooliest water you ever saw. In a small doghouse skiff. Scared and knowing this was it. Hank Stewart was coming in from the ocean, saw me and came over, threw me a knife to cut my gear loose and cut the anchor line that wouldn't hold. Threw me a line and told me to an anchorage. Thanks, Hank, 50 years ago and 50 years that he gave me. The next one is called The Sinking of the High Lee. This is about 4 or 5 little vignettes about a knife. That same summer, I went sailing with my grandpa and grandma on the High Lee. Toward the end of the season, the boat ran up on a rock and capsized. It happened fast and the water rushed in to the galley and over us. We tumbled out the door onto deck and I swam as quick as I could overboard and away from the sinking boat. I swam over to Grandma with a floating cooler for her to hang on to. So now we were all in the water, except Bill, the other crew member who couldn't swim. He had run up along the keel, which was now clear out of the water, and was shouting, "Help! I can't swim! Throw me your knife!" We all knew that if the boat went down, then his skiff tied on the back would go down with it, and we would not make it to shore. I looked at him and the distance between us, nothing but water in between. No way in hell was I going to throw that knife for him to catch, or maybe miss, so I swam over to the side of the boat, pulled out my knife, and handed it to him to cut the line. We climbed aboard the skiff and rowed over to Grandma and Grandpa, lifted them aboard. They were shaking. It was June, but the water was still freezing. We rowed to shore, started a fire, sat there for hours till a boat cruising the beach spotted us and radioed Cordova for an airplane. For a short time, Danny had a small hero status in town, but the real hero was the knife. The next one is called The New Gill Net. Danny Carpenter and his friend were on the dock getting ready for the first opening, loading up their new gill net and admiring it. Sometimes people will tell us that nets nowadays are over $5,000, so you know how expensive it was to them. An old fisherman was walking by on his way to the boat. "That's a pretty nice net you got there," he said, as he grinned at both of them. "But don't be afraid to cut her loose." Danny laughed. "Too good a net for that." That afternoon the storm caught them, and the gill netter drifted closer to the breakers. They tried to tow the net away, but it was too heavy. So they turned the boat around, thinking to tow it forward, it would have more power. In making the turn, the net fouled in the props and the engine stopped. Danny and his friend took one look at each other and ran for the back with their knives out and began slashing the net away from the prop. And then they cut her loose. Now I'm told that not every fisherman carries that knife nowadays because of regulations or travel, whatever. But for most fishermen, there's a sheath attached to the front helm of his gill netter and a knife for quick access in an emergency when he is working his net. So let's raise our glasses in a toast to the knife and all the fishermen who've ever had to use it. To the knife! To the knife! I think that's it. I had a tough night.
Iceberg.
Thank you all for coming. And I just want to say one thing quick. We went to a workshop yesterday, and they told us how to have stage presence. And 1, you smile. 2, you look somebody in the eye. And then 3, you pray a lot. But what stuck out the most was this guy's sentence, and what he said was, "You guys, your audience are nice people, and they're for you, and they don't want you to fail. So get up there and be positive, and if you make a few mistakes, that's okay, because they're for you." Thank you.